With nearly 5,000 specialists dedicated to supporting dealer financial services, Ally has the expertise to help you with your retail finance, F&I, and remarketing needs. We're all better off with an Ally. Contact your local Ally account executive to get started today. Ally, do it right.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Tuesday, April 29th, 2025. I'm Jamie Butters, Executive Editor of Automotive News in Detroit.
And I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, President Trump looks to ease the pain of tariffs on the auto industry. GM earnings drop as import duties spoil its 2025 guidance. And Stellantis shrinks Warren truck production as it gears up to launch its pickup plant in Mexico. Plus, last week's Shanghai Auto Show featured many of the latest advances from Chinese automakers. Sino Auto Insights Tu was on the ground and talks about what he saw.
It's just hard to keep up with all the products that are coming out and all the new brands.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry.
President Trump has been saying he wants to blunt the auto industry's tariff pain. Now he's expected to announce changes for parts in U.S. cars that are built overseas and to avoid some of the so-called stacking of levies. A White House official said Monday night that automakers would also not be responsible for other tariffs on aluminum and steel. The Wall Street Journal first reported the developments. The moves come as Trump prepares to travel to Michigan, epicenter of the traditional U.S. auto industry, to mark the first 100 days of his second term. Automakers said earlier on Monday they were grateful for the expected relief, but analysts question whether it's enough to keep the industry healthy.
Any relief from tariffs would be welcome news for General Motors, which is headquartered just 13 miles from where Trump will speak on Tuesday. GM postponed its earnings call with analysts by 2 days after the White House officials signaled the changes to tariff policies. In a statement, CEO Mary Barra said the automaker was involved in productive conversations with the president and his administration. She said, quote, "We're grateful to President Trump for his support of the U.S. automotive industry and the millions of Americans who depend on us. We believe the president's leadership is helping level the playing field for companies like GM and allowing us to invest even more in the U.S. economy." GM said that its previous guidance for the year was no longer reliable because of the uncertainty created by tariffs. It reported a 6.6% decline in first quarter net income. It fell to $2.8 billion in the period, while revenue rose 2.3% to $44 billion. Adjusted earnings before interest and taxes fell almost 10% to $3.5 billion.
Meanwhile, GM's long-delayed Orion assembly plant will not launch as a fully electric vehicle factory as the automaker had planned. That's despite undertaking a $4 billion retooling and expansion. The company is reevaluating the vehicle segment and powertrain types that will be built at the 4.3 million square foot plant because of cooled demand for EVs, as well as tariffs and regulatory shifts that are upending manufacturing and product strategy. That's according to two people familiar with the situation who spoke with our sibling publication, Crane's Detroit Business. GM has maintained publicly that the factory will be dedicated to the production of electric Silverado and Sierra pickups starting in late 2026. The plant had initially been scheduled to reopen for vehicle assembly in 2024. Spokesman Kevin Kelly said in an email to Crane's Detroit, quote, "We're not going to engage in speculation. The timing remains consistent with what we have previously said, fall 2026.
And about 30 miles southeast of GM's Orion plant, activity at Stellantis' Warren Truck Assembly has declined sharply. That's causing concern for the future of the factory and its workers, as the automaker gears up to launch Ram 1500 pickup production in Mexico. Stellantis expects to churn out fewer than 46,000 vehicles this year at the 3.3 million square foot plant on the Warren-Detroit border. That's according to volume projections shared with suppliers and reviewed by Crane's Detroit. The new production target is about half of the plant's volume last year and a 90% drop from a 2017 peak. Warren Truck has been idled until May 12th it makes slower selling Jeep Wagoneers and Grand Wagoneers. Stellantis discontinued production of the popular Ram 1500 Classic pickup at Warren Truck late last year, resulting in 1,100 layoffs at the plant as well as cuts at suppliers. And those are today's headlines. So, Jamie, President Trump is expected to announce changes to tariffs on parts in U.S. cars built overseas to avoid some of those so called stacking levies. Wouldn't this have been smarter to do from the beginning, or is there a method to the madness?
I, yeah, I mean, it would have definitely been better to have had a plan from the beginning. One thing, at least what's been reported, one of the things that kind of fits what I've been saying, which is to have them come in gradually. If you have them over a period of years, it's possible for the supply chain to make adjustments or for automakers to adjust who they're purchasing parts from or where the tools are put. Still 25% tariffs on imported vehicles, even with some reductions to them. The tariffs on parts is still going to be very problematic for the automakers. But we'll just have to see, where all the details really are and what the companies can do to respond.
Gotcha. Coming up, Sino Auto Insights Managing Director Tu Li has been in China for the Shanghai Auto Show and more. He talks about what he's been seeing next on Daily Drive.
For over 100 years, Ally has helped dealers like you serve your customers by providing the best-in-class products and services you need, and by remaining true to the automotive passion we share. Your dedicated Ally account executive will work hand in hand with you to help you gain efficiencies, increase your product offerings, and work to improve per-vehicle revenue. Because we care about your business as much as you do. We're all better off with an Ally. Contact your local Ally account executive to get started today. Ally, do it right.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Jamie Butters with Kellen Walker. The Shanghai Auto Show opened last week amid deep industry-wide uncertainty over how the U.S.-China trade war could dampen demand and scramble supply chains. That's as 100 more models launch into an already crowded market with more losers than winners. The show also showcased China's automotive tech surge that threatens to leave other global automakers stuck in the past. On Monday, I hosted an Automotive Press Association webinar featuring Sino Auto Insights Managing Director Tu Li, who has been in China for the Shanghai show and to see what local automakers are up to. Here's a piece of our conversation. You talked a little about the tariffs not being a topic of discussion, but maybe putting a cloud over things. We have a question from Sam about, with U.S. policies antagonizing virtually all of our traditional allies and trading partners, are you hearing Chinese OEMs talking about moving more aggressively into Canada, Mexico, Europe, and other regions? And do you think those countries will be more open to having Chinese OEMs build vehicles locally?
I think they're going to be I think they're going to be welcomed quite a bit. I think the Europeans, they definitely see an opportunity. There was an article, a great article, if anybody from Reuters is here, a scoop from Nick Carey that talked about how BYD screwed up their initial international expansion. And they regrouped, hired a bunch of Stellantis people, and are redoubling efforts now. Now, you have to recall that Xpeng also went into Europe, screwed up, fired the entire team, and now are trying again. So I think there's a bit of naivety on the China EV Inc. side with regards to maybe looking at Europe as one big country, which a lot of, let's say, young brands tend to do maybe. And it looks like they're going to be much more careful about that. When we talk about BYD, we have to separate them from everybody else because BYD is already in 100 countries. So they have to press reset in a bunch of these European countries as opposed to kind of change everything or at least enter for the first time.
Yeah.
But I think BYD sees an opportunity in plug-in hybrids because number one, they got feedback from a lot of their dealer groups that going all in on BEVs is probably not the right thing to do. And they were a huge sponsor of the Olympics and I want to say Euro Cup, which is the soccer tournament. And I don't know if that really paid off for them. And so I think they're going to do the more traditional, let's get a lot of dealers and have them be our messengers. So I think BYD is going to find a lot of success. I think XPeng, who had a separate event as well in Hong Kong. And it was a brand event. It wasn't a vehicle event because they emphasized robotics. They emphasized eVTOL or a flying car. And so they're looking like they're trying to be the Tesla of China because they showed a humanoid, they showed a flying car, and leaning into the intelligence and AI in their vehicles. So I do think that there's going to be a welcoming committee. I mean, there's going to be pushback just because it's not universal that the Chinese cars or Chinese EV maker is going to be welcome. But if they're going to promise jobs, but that also depends on how the EU feels about is shipping kits enough because Magnus Steyr in Austria, in Graz, is working with XPeng and GAC or Guangzhou Automotive to do two kits for them from China. I don't think that's going to be enough to satisfy the EU. I think they're going to actually want vehicles assembled and manufactured in Europe so they can take some of that supply chain too.
Yeah.
So,
all right. We also had a question from Mark asking about, launching new brands always seems to be the story for Chinese automakers. Why is there such a focus on new brands and sub-brands and not just new products within the brands? Or is both happening? And second, are there financial incentives to launch new brands and keep having more brands? It's just hard to keep up.
well, I wouldn't say that's a China thing. I mean, you look at Audi, right? So look at Buick, and Buick is still there, but the electric is a sub brand. I think the Chinese feel that it's a little bit easier to not deal with that baggage of the old brand or the current brands. And there's an argument to be made that if I'm an American consumer and Ford has advertised to me for 100 years, they make the best petrol engine powertrains for trucks, right? And then all of a sudden they pivot and say, we make amazing electric vehicles. I don't know if you can cross that chasm. I'm not saying that you should have a new brand, but there needs to be some care given and considered because you still need to sell these F-150s, but you need to also figure out how to turn them into a clean energy brand with minimizing the losses from your old customer base. So, but both are happening. Okay. I think one of the questions is new brands, new products.
It's a ton of both,
product,
right?
it was hard to keep. It's just hard to keep up with all the products that are coming out and all the new brands. I don't know what the incentives are, but I do know that most of the state-owned enterprises have their own EV brands that compete with the joint venture brands, the SAIC-GM, the SAIC-VW. So the ID series vehicles compete against SAIC's IM and Rising Auto. So it's a little weird.
Along those lines, just to clarify, Audi and AUDI, is it pronounced AUDI by the letters one by one? And the question in particular, how do you explain what you drive to a parking attendant?
So I forget how to say it in Chinese, but I think the Audi they'll say four rings, and the other one is Audi. So you just say Audi.
For the new
But
brand, you say Audi.
but that kind of illustrates the point, right? Where why wouldn't you just clean break or something?
Right.
It was like I'm sure they paid $1 billion or not $1 billion, but tens of millions of dollars for some brand consultancy to say change the name, just change how you portray it in the logo. Oh, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. So, anyways,
or they could have called it Fred.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't. It's a head scratcher to me. So.
Tu Li is managing director of Sino Auto Insights. We spoke during an Automotive Press Association webinar on Monday. That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Jamie Butters.
And I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer, as well as our own Lindsay Van Hully for her reporting for today's podcast. We also had reporting from Kurt Nagel of our sibling publication, Crane's Detroit Business. You can get the latest news on Chinese automakers, tariffs, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com.
Come back tomorrow for a conversation with Toyota Motor North America's Mike Tripp and Burrell Communications executive Corey Seaton about an ad campaign targeting young black men. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoy the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.